Mirrors have always been considered portals to other worlds, reflections of reality. But what if they held something else? Something sinister. In an old Victorian mansion inherited by a young artist, Ethan Carter, an antique mirror stands untouched for decades. It is said that no one dares look into it for too long. Ethan, skeptical of the warnings, soon realizes that some reflections are not meant to be seen. Ethan Carter receives news that his estranged great-uncle has passed away, leaving him a vast, abandoned Victorian mansion in the countryside. Drawn by curiosity and the promise of solitude, he arrives on a gloomy autumn evening. The house looms over him, its towering frame silhouetted against the darkening sky. It is a relic of a forgotten time, filled with antique furniture, dust-laden chandeliers, and eerie portraits of long-dead relatives. Among its many artifacts, one object stands out: a tall, dust-covered mirror with intricate carvings of unrecognizable symbols. It stands in the master bedroom untouched for decades. The mirror gives him an unsettling feeling, but he dismisses it as mere imagination. However, as he explores the house, he hears faint whispers echoing through the hallways, whispering words he cannot understand. Determined to restore the house to its former glory, Ethan begins cleaning. As he wipes away the dust covering the mirror, he notices something odd. The glass is too pristine, as if untouched by time. When he glances at his reflection, he sees something peculiar. At first, it seems like an ordinary reflection, but as he moves away, he swears he sees his reflection lingering for just a second longer than it should. The feeling of being watched grows stronger each night. He catches glimpses of movement from the corner of his eye. Objects in the mirror appear slightly distorted. The door in the reflection remains closed, even when it is open behind him. He convinces himself it is just exhaustion, but deep down, a nagging feeling of unease takes root. As days pass, the occurrences intensify. Shadows flicker in the mirror where none should be. His reflection sometimes appears paler, its eyes darker. At times, when he moves away from the mirror, he catches a glimpse of his reflection standing still, watching him with an eerie smile. Ethan's sleep becomes restless. Nightmares plague him. Dreams of a dark figure standing behind him, whispers calling his name from the depths of the glass. The house itself seems to shift, the air thick with an unseen presence. Every time he wakes up drenched in sweat, he finds himself staring into the mirror, as if drawn to it against his will. One stormy night, the whispers grow louder. They seem to seep from the walls, from the shadows, from the mirror. As he approaches it, his reflection doesn't move with him. Instead, it stays still, watching him with a look of malice. Then, in a voice eerily similar to his own, it speaks. "You shouldn't have looked." Ethan stumbles back, his heart hammering. The reflection moves closer to the glass, its smile stretching unnaturally wide. He turns away, determined not to look again, but the damage is done. The mirror has acknowledged him. Determined to understand what he has awakened, Ethan begins researching the mansion's history. He discovers that his great-uncle had always kept the mirror covered and had forbidden anyone from looking into it. Locals tell him stories of previous occupants who claimed the mirror was cursed, that it trapped souls and replaced them with something wrong. He digs deeper and uncovers a horrifying truth. The mirror once belonged to a man named Elias Vance, a scholar of the occult who sought to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. Legends say he succeeded, but at a terrible cost. His soul became trapped within the glass, and something else took his place. Ethan's grip on reality begins to slip. The whispers become voices, the shadows in the mirror more distinct. His own reflection starts moving on its own, its eyes filled with something ancient and malevolent. At times, it mimics him perfectly. At others, it acts entirely independently. He begins seeing himself in mirrors where there should be no reflection. His own face appears in windows, in puddles of water, in the darkened glass of his phone screen. He tries to flee, but no matter where he goes, his reflection follows. One night, Ethan is unable to resist any longer. He stands before the mirror, staring at his own image. The reflection grins, wider and wider, until the skin of its cheeks begins to tear. Its eyes blacken, and it presses its hands against the glass as if trying to break free. Then, with a horrifying lurch, it does. Ethan stumbles back as the figure steps out, its form shifting and distorting. It is no longer just his reflection. It is something else, something wrong, wearing his face like a mask. It lunges at him, and the room is swallowed in darkness. Ethan fights to escape the entity's grasp, but his limbs feel heavy. The house twists around him, the hallways stretching endlessly. The whispers become deafening. He realizes the mirror is a prison, and the creature is trying to take his place in the real world. With his last ounce of strength, he grabs his great-uncle's journal, finding a ritual meant to banish the entity back into the glass. He recites the words, his voice shaking as the mirror trembles violently. The creature shrieks, its form flickering as it is pulled back into its prison. As the ritual nears completion, the entity makes one last attempt to escape. It claws at Ethan, whispering in his voice, "You don't belong here anymore. Let me take your place." With a final desperate cry, Ethan shatters the mirror. The creature lets out a blood-curdling scream as the glass shatters around it. Silence follows. Exhausted, Ethan collapses. He awakens hours later, the mirror reduced to shards. It's over, or so he thinks. Ethan leaves the mansion, hoping to put the nightmare behind him. But as he walks past a shop window, he freezes. His reflection is there, but something is wrong. It lingers just a moment too long. Its smile is just a little too wide. He realizes with growing horror that though he won the battle, he may have already lost the war. Ethan spends the rest of his days avoiding mirrors, but they are everywhere. Every reflection he sees carries the same unsettling truth. His reflection is no longer just a reflection, and one day it might just take his place.